Today we're talking about ratio and proportional division. I must say ratio and proportion is one of the important topics in mathematics, and it's one of the important topics that NTC always brings in its licensure exams. Alright, so when we talk about ratio is normally used to show the relation between two or more things. We can also say that we use ratio to compare two or more things. Alright, for example, if we have 3 boys and 5 girls in a class, right, we can say that the ratio of boys to girls is 3:5. And what this means is that there are 3 boys and then there are 5 girls in a class. What we have to note is that always whatever thing or whatever name or whatever item that is mentioned first corresponds with the first number, and then the item, the name, or whatever thing that is mentioned second corresponds with the second number. Is that right? So what it means is that we have 3 boys, okay, we have boys over here, and that corresponds with a 3. Okay, and then we have 5 girls, right? We have girls over here, and that corresponds with a 5. Alright, let's take another example. Assuming we have assuming we are given that the number of males in a class is 7 and the number of females is 9, we can see that the ratio of males to females is 7:9. And what this means is that we have 7 males and then we have 9 females in a class. Now let's look at this one too. In a running competition, we were told that Kofi ran 50 meters and Ama ran 40 meters. And so we can write that the ratio of Kofi's run to Ama's run, which is 50 meters is to 40 meters, as 50 is to what? 40, right? But we have to remember that every time we have to write our ratios to the lowest term by dividing by the highest common factor, and the highest common factor is what? 10. So we divide both sides by 10. Okay, so that this 0 will take care of this 0, and this 0 2 will be cancelled by this 0. Okay, and so the ratio then becomes 5, okay, is to 4. Alright, 5:4. And so the ratio, which has been written as 50:40, we can reduce it to the lowest term as what? 5:4. Now let's take another example. This one says that in a swimming competition, John swam 10 centimeters and Mark swam 5 meters. What is the ratio of John's distance to Mark's distance? That's a very good question. In this example, the first distance is in centimeters, and then the second one is in meters. There is an important thing that we have to note over here. So we have to note that always the two distances must have the same unit of measurement. Okay, the two distances must have the same unit of measurement. But in this our example, the units of measurement are not the same. Therefore, we cannot express these two quantities as ratios. We cannot write that the ratio is 10 is to 5. We cannot write that the ratio is 10:5. No, because the unit of measurements are not the same. And so in this case, what do we do? What we have to do is that it's either we change the centimeters over here to meters, or we change the meters over here to centimeters. then we can go ahead and express those quantities as ratios. Is that okay? Alright, so let's see how we answer this question. Now we are going to change the meters over here to centimeters so that the two quantities will be having the same unit of measurement. So we have to note every 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. Okay, every 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. And so if we have 5 meters, what will it be in centimeters? It's simply going to be 5 times 100, and that will be equal to 500 centimeters. Is that right? Good. Every 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So 2 meters will be 200, 3 meters will be 300, 4 meters will be 400, and so 5 meters will be 500 centimeters. Alright, and so now we can write that John swam 10 centimeters, okay, as we were given the question over here. John swam 10 centimeters and Mark swam 500 centimeters. In fact, we were given in the question that Mark swam 5 meters, but 5 meters in centimeters is what? 500 centimeters. So therefore John swam 100 centimeters and Mark swam 500 centimeters. Now that the two quantities are in the same unit of measurement, centimeters and then centimeters, we can go ahead and write the two as ratios. So hence the ratio of John's distance to Mark's distance is 10 centimeters is to 500 centimeters. But in ratio, if you are expressing two quantities as ratios, we don't include the units of measurement. So we can write this one as 10 is to 500. Okay, 10 is to 500. But remember, we said earlier that we always have to write our ratios to the lowest term. Is that right? So how do we reduce this ratio to the lowest term? You simply divide both sides by the highest common factor. In this case is 10, so we divide both sides by what? 10. Divide the side 2 by what? 10. And this 0 will take care of this 0, or someone can say 10 will go into itself 1 and 10 will go into itself over here 1, right? And then also when you come here, this 0 can take care of this 0 and we're left with what? 50. Okay, or you can say 10 will go into 550 times. Is that right? So we are left with 1 is to 50. So the ratio 10 is to 500 will be equal to 1 is to 50. So that is our final ratio. Okay, and so that is the ratio of the distance that John swam to the distance that Mark swam. If you have any question, please leave it below in the comment section. Let's continue and then take another example. This one says that in an hour, Kyle covered a distance of 2 kilometers, whilst Jack covered 900 meters. Now, what is the ratio of Kyle's distance to Jack's distance? This question is similar to the previous one. So we could quickly go ahead and say that this is 2 kilometers and this is 900 meters. If you just look at the values, you go and write 2 is to what do we call it, 900, like this. But this would be a very big mistake. You cannot do this. Why? Because the two quantities are not having the same unit of measurements. This one is in kilometers and then this one is in what? Meters. So now what we have to do is that we either have to change the kilometers to meters or change the meters to kilometers so that the two quantities will be having the same unit of measurement. Alright, and so let me change the kilometers to meters. Alright, anytime you want to change kilometers to meters, we have to remember that every 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. Okay, every 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. And so if we have 2 kilometers, okay, 2 kilometers, and we want to change it to meters, it's simply going to be 2 times 1,000, and that will give us 2,000 meters. And so 1 kilometer is 1,000, 2 kilometers will be 2,000, 3 kilometers will be 3,000, 4 kilometers will be 4,000, and it continues like that. Alright, and so therefore we can say that Carl covered 2,000 meters and Jack covered 900 meters. Remember, in the question we were told that Carl covered 2 kilometers, right? Covered 2 kilometers, but 2 kilometers is the same as 2,000 meters, right? Now that the two quantities are in the same unit of measurement, meters and then meters, we can go ahead and write the two as ratio. Okay, so hence the ratio of Carl's distance to Jack's distance is 2,000 meters is to 900 meters. And so we can write this one as being equal to 2,000 is to 900. Once again, we always have to leave our ratios to the lowest term. So it means we have to reduce this to the lowest term by dividing both sides by the highest common factor, and that will give us 20 is to 9. 20 is to 9. If you're wondering how we got that, the highest common factor will probably be 100, so we divide both sides by 100, this side to 100, this side to by 100, and the 2 zeros, we take out the 2 zeros over here. These 2 zeros will also take out the 2 zeros, so you're left with 20. Okay, 20 is to 9, and that's what we have over here. Alright, now we can write ratios as fractions, right? So for example, if you have a ratio which is written as x is to y, you can write that as a common fraction, x over y. Is that right? If I have a ratio that is written as, let's say, a is to b, you can write this one as a common fraction. The first one, a, over the second one. Okay, so over b. That's how it is. For example, if I have a ratio 3 is to 4, I can write it as fraction, that is 3 over 4. Likewise, if I have 6 is to 8, I can write it as fraction 6 over 8. Actually, this ratio over here is the same as this ratio, and so we call them equivalent ratios. Why are we saying they are the same? They're the same because I can reduce this ratio over here to get the one at the top over here, right? Good. How do we do that? You can divide both sides by the highest common factor, which is what? 2. So when you divide this side by 2 and then this side 2 by 2, you know, 2 goes here 1, 2 go into 6, how many times? 3, right? This is 3. Then 2 go here 1, 2 go here 4. Okay, and so the ratio actually is 3 is to 4, and that is what we have over here. That is why they are equivalent ratios, and we can write it as 3 is to 4 is equal to 6 is to 8. We'll be applying all these understanding moving forward. Now let's talk a little about proportional division. When we talk about proportional division, it's all about dividing a given quantity or any given quantity in a given ratio, right? Someone can say it's about sharing something in a given ratio, sharing something in a given ratio. Alright, now if you have something and you want to share it proportionally, okay, or if you want to divide something in a given ratio, how do you go about it? Now the first thing we have to do is to find the total ratio. Okay, find the total ratio. And so, for example, if the ratio is x is to y, what is going to be the total ratio? The total ratio is simply going to be x plus y. So for example, if I have the ratio 3 is to 5, my total ratio would be 3 plus 5, and that would be what? 8. So the first thing is to find the total ratio. Alright, now if you're able to find the total ratio, the next thing is to find each part of the ratio, or the fraction of each part. Right, you find each part of the ratio. What do I mean by that? For example, if the ratio is x is to y, then the part of the ratio that corresponds to x is going to be x over the total ratio, right? X over the total ratio, and that of y will be y over the total ratio, right? So for example, if we have the ratio 3 is to 5, then we say that the part of the ratio that corresponds to 3 is 3 over the total ratio, which is 8. And then the part that corresponds to 5 is 5 over the total ratio, which is what? 8. Alright, so let's go ahead and take some examples. Now, a man shared an amount of 250 Ghana cedis between his sons, Kyle and Walker, in a ratio 2 is to 3. Find how much each of them had. As we said earlier, to be able to share this amount according to the given ratio, we first have to find the total ratio, right? Find the total ratio. So the total ratio is 2 plus 3, right? The sum of the given ratios over here. So 2 plus 3, and that will give us what? 5. Alright. Now you have to be able to write out the important information from the question, just like we did for the total ratio. So we should be able to write out the total amount that they are supposed to share, and that is 250 Ghana cedis. Alright. Now if you're able to do this, the next thing is to write the part that belongs to Walker, or the fraction for Kyle. So Kyle's share will be equal to Kyle's fraction, that is 2 over 5, times the total amount that they are supposed to share, right? Kyle's share will be Kyle's fraction, which is 2 over 5. This 2 over 5 is gotten from the ratio that corresponds to Kyle, right? The first one corresponds to the first person. Is that right? So that ratio over the total ratio. So Kyle's fraction times the total amount that they are supposed to share, and that will give us 100 Ghana cedis. So Kyle's share is 100 Ghana cedis. Now after getting Kyle's share to be 100 Ghana cedis, there are different ways that you can get Walker's share, or let's say there are two ways that we can get Walker's share. The first one will be that you write out Walker's fraction and multiply by the total amount like this. So Walker's share will be Walker's fraction times the total amount that they're supposed to share, and that will give us 150 Ghana cedis. Now the other way or method that you can use to get Walker's share is also that someone can say that Walker's share is equal to the total amount minus Kyle's share. Now two of us had 250 Ghana cedis to share, and my share is 100 cedis. If my share is 100 cedis, then your share will be the remaining balance, right? So if I subtract my 100 cedis from the 250 Ghana cedis that we are supposed to share, then the balance becomes yours. So this is equal to 250 minus 100, and that will be equal to 150 Ghana cedis, which is exactly the same as what we had over here. Alright, if you have any questions, leave it in the comment section. Alright, let's take another example. Now, an amount of money, 300 Ghana cedis, is shared among Kofi Kweku and Ama in the ratio 4:3:3. How much did Kweku receive? Our interest now is on Kweku alone. How much Kweku received? So let's look at the solution. As we said earlier, the first thing is to find the total ratio. So the total ratio is 4 plus 3 plus 3, and that will give us what? 10. Okay, you sum the given ratio. Now, what is the total amount that they're supposed to share? 300 Ghana cedis. 300 Ghana cedis. Alright. To be able to get Kweku's share, we have to be able to write Kweku's fraction. So Kweku's fraction is simply going to be the ratio that corresponds to Kweku. Now there are 3. 1, 2, 3, right? And so the first ratio corresponds to the first person, which is Kofi. The second ratio will correspond to the second person, which is Kweku. And then the third one will correspond to the third person, Ama. And so now, since our interest is in the second person, we are going to pick the second ratio. Okay, so in writing Kweku's fraction will be 3/10. Okay, will be the ratio that corresponds to Kweku over the total ratio. So Kweku's fraction will be 3/10. Remember, we used the fraction to get Kweku's share. So Kweku's share will be his fraction times the total amount that he is supposed to share, and that will give us 90 Ghana cedis. This is quite simple. Now let's take another example. An amount of money was shared between Kofi and Ama in the ratio 3:5 respectively. If Ama received 650 Ghana cedis, what is Kofi's share? Well, this question is not straightforward, but it's also very simple. So the ratio has been given as 3:5. The first ratio corresponds to the first person, Kofi, and then the second corresponds to the second person, Ama. So the total ratio is what? 3 plus 5, and that will give us what? 8. Now when you look at the question, we were not given the total amount that they are supposed to share, right? We were rather given Ama's share that she received. So Ama's share is 650 Ghana cedis. Now what is the total amount that they shared? We don't know. So we say let the total amount be K. So now let's pay attention to this. We don't know the total amount that they shared, but you agree with me that this Ama's share over here, okay, will be Ama's fraction times the total amount that they shared. That is what will give us Ama's share over here, right? Yes. So this implies Ama's share is equal to Ama's fraction times the total amount that they're supposed to share, which we don't know, and we said should be K. Is that okay? So Ama's share that she received is equal to Ama's fraction. What is Ama's fraction? The ratio that corresponds to Ama over the total ratio. So 5/8 is Ama's fraction times the total amount that they're supposed to share is what will give us Ama's share. Is that right? So for example, if they are sharing 1,000, Ama's share will be 5/8 times 1,000. If they are sharing 10,000, Ama's share will be 5/8 times 10,000. But we don't know the total amount that they are sharing, so we'll let it be K. Alright, but there's something interesting over here. This Ama's share that we are talking about over here has been given already in the question. So in place of Ama's share, as we have over here, we can write 650 Ghana cedis. Good. So we have 650 Ghana cedis is equal to 5 times K will give us 5K, okay, divided by 8. Now we can multiply both sides by what? The denominator over here. Okay, so you can multiply both sides by 8, then multiply this side too by what? 8. so that this 8 will cancel this 8 over here. By so doing, we have 8 times 650, and that will give us 5,200 is equal to 5k. Good. So 5,200 is equal to 5k. Now we are looking for what? K. So we divide both sides by what? 5. And then divide this side too by what? 5. So that this 5 will cancel this 5. So we have k is equal to 5,200 divided by 5. And if you simplify this, you're going to get k to be equal to 1040. Good. So therefore, the total amount that is shared is 1,040 Ghana cedis. But that is not what the question wants us to find. The question wants us to find Kofi's share. But now that we have the total amount that is shared, we can find Kofi's share. How do we find that? There are two ways that we can talk about. Now, the first one that we'll talk about is Kofi's share is equal to Kofi's fraction times the total amount that is shared. Right? Kofi's fraction is the ratio that corresponds to Kofi divided by the total ratio times the total amount that is shared, and that will give us Kofi's share. Now there's another way or method that we can use to find Kofi's share. Right? If Kofi and Ama are sharing a total amount of 1,040 and Ama's share is 650, then Kofi's share will be the total amount that they are sharing minus Ama's share. Good. So we can also say that the Kofi's share is equal to the total amount minus Ama's share. Now what is the total amount? The total amount is 1,040 minus Ama's share 650. When you subtract, you'll be getting 390 Ghana cedis. 390 Ghana cedis, which is actually the same as what we had over there. Alright, so if you have any comments or any questions, you can leave it in the comment section below. Now let's take another example. Example 4. Yao, Kofi and Ama shared the profit they earned in a month from a joint business in a ratio 2:4:3 respectively. Now if Ama and Kofi together got a total of 42 Ghana cedis, find the profit earned in a month. Good. So that's another good question. In fact, this is a typical NTC question. And the question wants us to find the total profit that they made at the end of the month. Good. So as always, we first have to find the total ratio. So the total ratio is 2 plus 4, 6 plus 3, 9. So Ama and Kofi's share was given to be 42 Ghana cedis. Now we can write Ama and Kofi's total fraction, right? Good. So Ama and Kofi's total ratio or fraction, right? Fraction. That's 3/9 plus 4/9. This is Ama's fraction and this is Kofi's fraction. Now when you put it together, you'll be getting the total fraction of 7/9. Now we have been told that Ama and Kofi together took 42 Ghana cedis. Now also we are able to find that Ama and Kofi's total fraction is what? 7/9. We don't know the total amount of profit that they earned, but assuming we know the profit that they earned, we could have been able to say that Ama and Kofi's share, in fact this 42 Ghana cedis, was obtained by multiplying their total fraction by the total profit, right? This Ama and Kofi's share has been obtained by multiplying their total fraction by the total profit earned. But since we don't know the total profit, we say let the total profit be what? P, or let it be K, let it be X, any variable, right? Good. So if we are able to write that, then we can say that Ama and Kofi's share is their total fraction times the total profit P, which we don't know. Okay, but in a question we were given Ama and Kofi's share. We were given Ama and Kofi's share to be what? 42 Ghana cedis. So in place of Ama and Kofi's share over here, we can put over here 42 Ghana cedis. So we have 42 Ghana cedis is equal to 7 times P will be 7P over what? 9. Good. We multiply both sides by what? 9. Then multiply this side 2 by what? 9. So that this 9 can cancel this 9. Good. Now, if you're able to do that, we have 9 times 42. So 9 times 42 is equal to what? 7P. Now, 9 times 42 is equal to 378. Is equal to 7P. So, divide both sides by 7. Divide both sides by 7. So that this one can cancel this 7 over here. So now we have P being equal to 378 over 7. And if you simplify that, we're going to get P to be what? 54. But what did we say P is? We said P is the total profit, which the question is asking for. So therefore, the total profit P is equal to 54 Ghana cedis. 54 Ghana cedis. In fact, this is a typical NTC question. In the next video on ratio and proportion, we'll look at more challenging questions. Stay tuned.